Do you have someone in your life that's a writer? Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to talk to writers. Hey friends, Lenn Woolston here, and today I am going to be sharing with you on how to talk to a writer that you may know. Now, I can tell you from personal experience that being a writer is something that is fantastic, it's great, it's what I was meant to do in this life, but sharing that with other people that I identify as like I am a writer is something that is a little tricky. And the reason for that is because chances are that it's really hard to open up about something that you're really passionate about when people don't have that same passion, and so they may not get it. And chances are that if you are a writer, you have had a conversation with somebody that's kind of similar to this.
So what is it that you do?
Well, I am a writer, and
Well, that's a nice hobby, but what do you really do?
I really write books, and I also...
So, how much money do you make?
I'm actively searching for an agent to represent my work, and so
So you don't make anything?
That's not exactly what I...
See, that's what I thought. You should get a real job that pays. You know, I wrote a book once.
Oh, really? What is it about?
Well, I didn't finish it, but that was just a phase, a side little hobby for a while. You know what?
What's that?
You should write a book about two boys fighting over one girl.
That's not exactly what I...
No, 4 boys fighting over one girl. Yes! And you should make them dazzling looking or something.
I don't really write...
You know what? I'll just go ahead and write this book, because writing a book is so easy. Isn't that right, Kiki?
Now, I hope in all honesty that you haven't had an actual conversation that was that bad. But I can tell you that from personal experience, I've had a few of those mentioned and those kind of same reactions that weren't as inflamed, but very similar. And so I wanted to kind of impart my wisdom and knowledge on how to talk to writers. And this also is something that if you are a writer, this is a great way for you to also have conversations with fellow writers. So let's get into exactly how you can have a great conversation with a writer. Starting off very simple, you can ask, what are you working on? By doing this, you're able to kind of provide the opportunity for a writer to share exactly what they are working on. What story do they have brewing? Are they working on their first draft, or are they working on their second draft? Have they been through an insane amount of edits, or are they querying, or are they on submission? By asking what they're working on, it really allows them to open up and be honest about where they are in the process and kind of explain how that whole process works. Another thing that you can ask a writer is, what inspired this story? This is a great question because with every story, it's almost like getting a tattoo. There is a story behind it. So with this, there is a story behind the story. And finding out exactly what it was that inspired this writer to kind of explore this new setting and with these new characters and kind of experience what it is like to have their life is a great story of itself. Just finding out exactly what kind of journey that their thoughts went down, or what it was an experience that happened to them that really inspired them to write this book, is something that you will kind of glean from a new understanding of who they are as an individual as well as who they are as a writer. It also provides a great experience for the writer to kind of delve into why they are the person that should be writing this story and what kind of prompted it. Another fun question that you can ask a writer is, what character of yours most represents you? This also is really fun because you'll kind of see that writers will rack their brains over this one for the most part, because they have really delved into what it's like to have all these different characters, and identifying with one is going to take them to kind of process. So it's kind of fun seeing as their wheels are turning and they're thinking about this. But asking which character they most identify with also kind of gives you a snippet as to what their story is about, and you could ask them further, like, why do you see that person as yourself? It might be that they're just like, this is kind of how I would react in the story, or you may be shocked to find out that it's the complete opposite of how they are in person, but having that character there, they identify and they're able to kind of live out maybe fantasies or different experiences that they don't get in their personal life. So that's a really fun question for you to ask a writer. Now, if you yourself aren't a writer, but you are having this chat with a writer, something to kind of identify with why did they choose writing is to ask, what do you like most about writing? This is great because you can kind of see that maybe it's not something that you are strong suited in or even have a desire to, but when you see somebody light up and get passionate about what it is that they're supposed to be doing in this life and what they thrive on, there's something that is just so transcendent about experiencing that with that person, and you kind of get that joy within you as you're listening to their joy. So it's something that I would recommend for you to ask, and you might be surprised on why or what it is that they love about writing most. It may just be that they want to get a story out there, but there are also many things that people really love about writing. Maybe it's world building, or maybe it is just having characters do crazy things, or it could be something as quirky as like just being able to put down the words that maybe in a conversation with dialogue that they wanted to say to somebody in their life. It's really a great question to ask because you're able to kind of see why it is that they love writing so much and how that kind of impacts them on a personal level. Now, it may come to a surprise for you to know that there are lots of writers out there who had started way early with writing than compared to when they come out with their first novel or when they come out with their first published work. There are many of us as writers that we can think back to being a child and writing then, but then there are some of us who transition later in life and are just now picking up. So another great question is to ask, how did you start writing? Maybe it was something that they just needed an outlet for just their creativity to kind of gravitate towards just this writing aspect, or maybe it was something that an English teacher really saw like, hey, you're really great at writing, you should do this more. Whatever it is, it's really great to see kind of what the humble beginnings of this writing journey that this writer of yours is on, and you get to kind of just see where it all began and kind of hear what it was like transitioning as they developed their writing craft. Now, this next question, you're probably going to get a chuckle or two from this writer, but it is, what has writing taught you the most? I can tell you that you're probably going to hear something about like patience, because in the writing world that is something that is definitely needed, but you can kind of see that where they kind of have developed not only as a writer in growth but also personally, and what that whole process of writing a book has taught them. So doing so, you're kind of able to see how doing something and dedicating a good chunk of their life to this interest of theirs has kind of superseded all of these other interests that you may or may not know. But it's something that, especially if you have a writer who is taking on as a career of theirs, that there is definitely a moment where they're going to say that, yeah, I decided this is what I was going to do, and this is why, because life taught me this. Or you can see that as they were writing that they just fell in love with it and they love the process of it. Or it can be entirely different, but it's definitely one that's going to make that writer of yours ponder over what exactly it was. Now that you kind of have a general idea of exactly who your writer is in this writerly world, you can then ask, what are you going to do with your work? This can mean, are you going to publish it yourself, or are you going to seek a traditional publishing with getting an agent, or something completely different? It could be something that they just wanted to put it out there for free and they don't want to go through the whole publication process and just make it available to readers. It may be something that they decide, I just want to self-publish it in a book form just for me. Whatever it is, you can kind of see on how they're going to take this journey and what they're going to do with these stories to hopefully get it into the hands of readers. As a follow-up to what these writers are going to do with their stories, you can ask, what is the process to getting a book published? There are many people that are either confused or they just are completely naive about the whole book industry and not understanding the process that one has to take in order to have a story idea to a book in readers' hands. So writers, this is a great way for you to kind of explain all the ins and outs of the publishing world and also get to vent about the whole process that you're going through and making that sure that your friends or your loved ones understand that is not something that happens overnight and there are quite a lot of steps. Now, chances are that writer that you're having this discussion with is also a reader, so there are a few other things that you can discuss. You can talk about what each of you are currently reading. Or you can even go a little bit deeper and say, this is what I'm currently reading and this is what is on my to-be-read list. I love having these conversations with people. I love talking about books and just asking what they're currently reading and what is happening in that story if I'm not familiar with it. And then I love, kind of discussing what I'm reading and why I like it. And also kind of picking their brain a little bit more on like, why did you select that? What was it about that book that made you want to pick it up? And so this is a great way to extend not only just on the writer world, but then just to talk about books because books are so awesome. And finally, ask that writer friend of yours, do you have a book to recommend? This is great because you all get exposure to a book that maybe you're not familiar with, but that writer knows. And guess what, writers? This is a great opportunity for you to put your shameless self-plug on the book that you have published because you can say, hey, I actually have something that you would enjoy, and you would be able to show them where you're able to sell your book and that they can pick it up so that they can read it. So that will also grow your readership. So there you have it. Now you know exactly how to talk to writers. If any of those questions you want to see my response to, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. Or if you have a question entirely different from what I mentioned that you want to ask this writer, go ahead and drop it down below. I'd love to answer it. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Go have some conversations with writers, and until next video, bye!